And on the matter of affordability, if I can just say, today's so-called announcement with respect to auto insurance is just far too little, far too late. This government removed the cap on insurance rates as a result of their close relationships with lobbyists and the insurance industry. And the result was that families all across this province saw their auto insurance rates shoot up, in some cases to above 30% increases. Now, well after the fact, long after the horses left the barn, they're promising to close it with a little freeze until the end of 2023. It's far too little too late, and moreover, Albertans simply, based on this UCP record, cannot trust them to stand up for them for fair auto insurance rates more than about 5 or 6 seconds past an election date in May, should the UCP actually hold on to power. So just not enough. So I'm happy to take any questions that folks might have.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person, then we'll go to questions on the line. First one to Adam.
Ms. Notley. So, yeah, maybe can I just get your thoughts on this insurance rate freeze for auto insurance right now? What can be done to kind of stabilize these rates here in Alberta as we are seeing, some higher prices right now?
Well, quite honestly, I think the announcement that we saw today is really, in many ways, it's an example of Danielle Smith caving to the pressure of lobbyists within the insurance industry. A freeze on insurance now, after the prices have spiked so much as a result of their decision to take the cap off, is not going to help Albertans. The fact that many people will still see increases this year because so many increases have already been approved, even though they haven't shown up on people's bills, is not good enough. The fact that they're only promising to freeze until the end of 2023 is not good enough. Albertans have seen this movie before, and they know what it means, is that it will end with the cap, any kind of freeze coming off, and the UCP friends and insiders in the insurance industry continuing to charge the highest auto insurance rates in the country to Albertans.
I guess this is a follow-up. What do you make of the insinuation that this is just because of inflation and supply chain issues? As we've seen costs rise across the country for those reasons. What do you make of the insinuation that the increase in insurance rates is because of that and not so much because of government action?
Well, here's the thing. We know that people in Alberta pay more in insurance than just about any other part of the country, even though in many cases a lot of the pressures on costs are lower here. There is no justifiable explanation for the amount of profits that are being enjoyed by the insurance companies here in Alberta relative to other parts of the country, and there's no good explanation for why Albertans are paying more, other than the fact that this UCP government is captured by insurance company lobbyists, many of whom have worked on their campaigns, and the insurance industry itself. Albertans don't have a choice about whether they have to insure their vehicles. It is incumbent upon a government to put Albertans' interests first and to find reasonable levels of cost when it comes to insurance. We put a cap in place, and the UCP chose to remove it, and now Albertans are paying far more than they should be.
Good afternoon, Ms. Notley. Keith with CTV News. Just a quick question from one of my reporters. What do you think would be an appropriate way to handle the allegations against Mr. Shandro regarding his actions when he was health minister?
Well, what I will say about the current specter of having the Attorney General mired in a Law Society hearing around his alleged inappropriate behavior is that this kind of thing could only happen in the UCP government. Having the Attorney General remain in the position of Attorney General while he's while he's the subject of a Law Society hearing is deeply inappropriate. At the end of the day, I mean, we'll wait and see what the outcome of that hearing is, and we'll see what additional steps need to be taken. For certain, we were all concerned when we saw somebody with the influence and the authority of a minister of the cabinet showing up at the end of a driveway of a private citizen. That was very distressful, I think, for many folks, and I'm glad that it's being looked at now.
Mike Simonton, CBC News. In regards to the investigation of the prosecuting office today, the UCP government says they have done an investigation into it and that they found no evidence. How do you respond to that?
I think it is outrageous that Danielle Smith is really naive enough to think that Albertans would trust an internal investigation that has not been transparently conducted, that's been conducted by people who answer to her, and that only considered deleted emails that go back 30 days when, of course, the alleged email conversations happened last fall. So this is an empty talking point and nothing else. And that is why our Alberta NDP caucus has been calling for an independent judge-led review of the allegations with respect to political interference in the judicial system. And let us remember, Danielle Smith herself is on video claiming to have repeatedly talked to prosecutors about whether these charges should go ahead. She is then on video contradicting herself on that very matter. And then she's on video lying about both things. So that's the starting point. The fact that we have now allegations of even more inappropriate behavior is hardly surprising. But the way to get to the bottom of it is to have an independent investigation where all parties are protected for giving true evidence to whoever it is running that investigation. And to be clear, that does not mean the Premier's office investigating the Premier's office.
Also, the IT industry has seen some recent cutbacks. Benevity has some layoffs. What do you have to say to those layoffs in the IT industry?
Well, of course, my heart goes out to all folks who work in AI and tech here in Alberta who are seeing their jobs either eliminated or put in jeopardy. We know that the tech industry is going through tough times worldwide right now, but we also know that it seems to be hurting disproportionately here in Alberta. Part of that is because this UCP government cut all of the strategic investments that our government had made to support the industry, and now entrepreneurs and investors and innovators in the tech sector in Alberta are having to do their job with an uneven playing field because we see those same kind of incentives happening in other provinces while they're not happening in Alberta. And the result is that we have lower investment in Alberta on a per capita basis than other provinces. And that shows a real lack of leadership by the UCP in an industry that we need not only to grow tech, but to in fact support all economic sectors in Alberta as they reposition for a more tech-driven future.
Okay, we'll go to questions on the line. First one goes to Francois Joly from Radio Canada.
Hear your thoughts on this announcement, $1 million to study training doctors and other health professionals in Lethbridge and Grand Prairie. Is that a fruitful avenue to solving the shortages of healthcare professionals in the rural regions?
I think that we're going to need some much bigger and bolder investments than $1 million. Let's be clear, the post-secondary sector that would be offering these regionalized positions to train healthcare professionals, including doctors, are suffering under a roughly $700 million loss as a result of cuts by this UCP government. So throwing out $1 million today is kind of a drop in the bucket. it. If we were serious about a comprehensive human resource training strategy, we would be putting a lot more than $1 million into it. And this is a problem that this government has been aware of now for years. They've had the opportunity to make more ambitious progress on the issue, and this is not enough.
Is there a follow-up, Francois?
Yeah, I just guess, so that's $1 million for a study. So just on the principle, do you agree with that as a way, as maybe the long-term part of the solution to this problem?
You know, I think there's a lot of different ways to encourage healthcare professionals to work in rural parts of the province, and there's no one simple answer. Certainly, if you train people in the communities where they live, you're more likely to get some of them to stay. And indeed, that kind of work had already been happening to a large degree. But it's a very big issue. We have a problem in Alberta in that the government has a very combative relationship with healthcare professionals, and so that's a challenge. We need to see greater levels of respect between government and those people who provide that important service. We need to deal with recruitment. We need to deal with international accreditation. We need to stop creating instability and chaos in the healthcare system overall. All of those things drive people out of the profession, and so this is one thing. But in terms of pulling folks into rural Alberta, we need to provide greater stability. And then again, of course, we'd like to see more consultation with leaders and opinion leaders and municipal leaders in some of those rural communities about how to best provide the kind of attractions to keep folks in those communities who provide those important healthcare services.
Okay, next question goes to Carrie Tate from the Globe and Mail.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. You started the press conference by describing the accused in COVID violations cases in Coots as people who have friends in the Premier's office who do not follow the law. I'm wondering if you're concerned at all that those types of comments risk prejudicing a jury, or should you become Premier? It's sort of the flip side of what Danielle Smith is doing right now, saying, like putting your opinion out there as a potential Premier.
Well, you know, I guess the issue here at this point is that I am not Premier, and I am solely looking at the charges that have been applied. And so there are allegations out there that they did not follow the law. And you are right, I should have said that allegedly did not follow the law. That is the more appropriate way to put it. But the key is that question of whether it's alleged or accurate needs to be determined in an independent way through our system of justice without anybody personally reaching out to contact prosecutors or judges or anybody else within the system that is responsible for enforcing the rules that have been in place.
Is there a follow-up, Carrie?
Yeah, do you think that the prosecutors need to be swapped out in this case at all?
You know, what I know is that there's a lot I don't know. And I think making that conclusion would be to answer some of the questions as though I know it. What I believe is that there should be an independent investigation into the allegations of political interference. And when I say allegations on that front, I refer to the ones around emails and political staff. I don't actually refer to the ones that the Premier herself has admitted to on video, because what she's actually admitted to, in my view, amounts to political interference. That being said, though, that's why we need an independent investigation sooner rather than later in order to determine what pressure was applied by the Premier or her staff on these issues.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to questions in person.
Mike Sidington, CBC News, Calgary. this week there was an announcement in Calgary of a new orthopedic private hospital. How do you feel about that? And I'll remind you, in 1991, we also went through this and it actually closed. So now, same facility, we're trying it again to diminish lines. What do you think?
Well, listen, I have a strong view that we should be able to do this work within the public system, publicly delivered. You refer back to when this was tried in the past, and there were sort of separated out orthopedic surgical hubs established, some in Calgary, some in Edmonton, to determine whether we could deal with the wait times. The ones in Calgary were privately delivered. The ones in Edmonton were publicly delivered. The ones in Edmonton were successful. The ones in Calgary shut down. The bottom line is that the research shows that when you inject a profit motive into the delivery of healthcare, ultimately costs go up, and the quality of care goes down, and the system as a whole becomes more fragmented. So this is an ideological push by a government that is trying to feather the nest of their friends and insiders. And what I would rather see is a government that is focused on delivering well-resourced, high-quality, publicly delivered health care to Albertans when and where they need it.
Okay, next question goes to Dean Bennett.
Oh, hi, Rachel. Well, I asked you yesterday about the future of the Science Advisory Panel that the Premier had announced on her first day in office. And now her office says actually that's what Preston Manning will be doing. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm deeply troubled that our Premier is taking scientific medical advice from someone who, A, is neither a scientist nor a doctor, who has clearly put out his own views on these issues, which are very extreme and unsupported by the evidence. This is the kind of chaotic, incompetent, conflict-focused governance that Albertans are so tired of, that is designed to create a level of instability that undermines efforts to both improve our quality of life as well as strengthen our economy. And it's all kind of related, and this approach is just, it doesn't help Albertans on any front.
Do you follow up, Dean?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, next question goes to Janet French.
Hello.
Hi.
Rachel, I don't recall you taking any steps to discontinue the private delivery of healthcare when you were in office. So if you become Premier again, what would you do with the public funding going to these private surgical centers that the UCP is currently signing contracts with?
Well, in actually, Janet, we did to some degree. We didn't with the surgical units, but we did in other areas of healthcare delivery. Understanding that the first process of transitioning from private delivery back to public delivery can have some upfront costs depending on the nature of the contracts. So you'll recall that we did in fact cancel the contract with Dynalife and commence the investment into a public lab system, which anyway had tremendous opportunities for Albertans, and now is the cancellation of which presents with lost opportunities over and over and over again. And we also worked to increase the level of public management around growth in long-term care beds when we were in government as well. But it's a slower process for sure, but we certainly would not grow it, and then we would look for ways to reduce it in a cost-effective way.
Did you have a follow-up, Janet?
Yes, I don't think you addressed my question about what you would do with the contracts with surgical centers, though. I mean, I don't think we know how long these contracts are or what the penalties are for exiting the contracts. Is that something you would consider? Is
Absolutely.
removing public funding?
That's exactly, so I wasn't clear enough. We would definitely take a look at them and look at the way in which we could sort of cycle out of them. A lot of them, of course, would have expiry dates, and so we'd look at the cost, and we'd look at ensuring that we had an alternative in place before we moved out of them. But generally speaking, these kinds of setups end up, as I say, they cost government more, they draw staff away, and they fragment the system. So we would do a review of how to, in a cost-effective way, ensure that we're providing those services as or more effectively to Albertans, and definitely not look at growing the role for private delivery.
Okay, we'll do one more pass for questions on the line or in person. And seeing none, that's all for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.